I'm Laurel Beaversdorf, strength and conditioning coach.
And I'm Dr. Sarah Court, physical therapist.
With over 30 years of combined experience in fitness, movement, and physical therapy,
we believe in strong opinions, loosely held.
Which means we're not here to hype outdated movement concepts.
Or to gatekeep or fearmonger strength training for women.
For too long, women have been sidelined in strength training.
Oh, you mean handed pink dumbbells and told to sculpt?
Whatever that means, we're here to change that with tools, evidence, and ideas that center women's needs and voices.
Let's dive in. Ladies and gentlemen, live from planet Earth.
The Milky Way.
Sure.
The solar system.
So I understand. Welcome to the Movement Logic Podcast. I am Sarah Court. I'm a physical therapist. I am here with my co-host, Laurel Beaversdorf. She is a strength and conditioning coach. And today, we're going to talk to you all about our brand new course, tutorial, program. I've been having a hard time figuring out what the word is that goes after it.
Not a freaking tutorial.
But it's also not a course because Live for Longevity is our course.
Hi, I'm Laurel and I'm a strength and conditioning tutor.
Okay, she's still stuck on that one. So is it a program?
No, it's a course.
I guess in my head, a course is like, anyway.
Course is a course, of course. And this
Unless
is a powerful course.
And then, of course, you know that the course it's called Power Play. Boom. We're going to make this whole episode basically one long FAQ about the course. So when you listen to this, dear listener, it is the middle of the period in which we are selling the course for an introductory price of $99. And I believe you will have 4 more days to purchase it. The sales price, pardon me, the sale price goes up after Sunday, May 31st. So you have like 3 or 4 more days to grab this tutorial. Sorry, not tutorial, God forbid. What motivated us to make Power Play?
Well, I think that for me,
born on a farm.
Listen, I was born on a farm with the famous Mr. Ed. Of course. Okay, let's get to the PowerPoint here. Did you pick up on that? That was good.
That was good.
Why? Here is exactly why. I was coaching Lift for Longevity year after year, and we were working with these women on impact training. And there's some exercises within our course that are more power-based exercises, like the rotational clean to press and some of how I would coach the row and things like that. So I was like, this is a really secretively good part of Lift for Longevity, which is that we're actually training them for strength, but also power because they're doing broad jumps. They're doing vertical jumps. They're doing these more explosive resisted lifts, right? And I got to thinking, I was like, this is something that we should talk more about. We should explain it more. And so in the classes, I would often thread in context around the power element and the speed of movement being especially beneficial and trying to move quickly and powerfully and da-da-da-da-da. And then I think you and I were both talking, as we are known to do with each other. And
constantly.
I feel like we started to mention to each other like, oh yeah, and then there's power, which seems to be even more important for fall prevention. And we were big into let's make bones stronger so that if people fall, they don't fracture. But then we were like, wait a second, what if people just don't fall?
Right. How about we start a little bit further back?
Let's back this wagon up.
Right, exactly.
Right. And I think that's why. And then also having done CrossFit for a couple of years and engaged in various different power-based movements, and then I'm a very durable, kind of non-injury prone person generally, but hearing all of the negativity against CrossFit and injury and da-da-da-da-da, and then also seeing some of the older folks in the CrossFit gym and overhearing them talk about this or that part of the WOD I just can't do, da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know why I'm dying a lot this episode, but that's an annoying tick that I've picked up just now. I noticed that there were no entry points, is a word I like, for folks to start working on power. And this is not everyone, but I think a lot of folks come to classes like CrossFit, where there's a lot of jumping all of a sudden or a lot of explosive movements. They're either give me an alternative that looks nothing like the exercise, or they do it and they do way too much of it and they're like, holy shit, I can't move.
Don't you mean a tutorial like CrossFit? I just wanted to break her. I feel like you and I sort of always have our what's the expression? Nose to the grindstone, ear to the wheel. Isn't there an expression about a wheel or a grindstone and like either your ear or your nose?
Finger on the pulse,
I mean, that's a better one, obviously, but
nose in the wind,
what? I don't think that's one.
nose downwind of what's happening.
That just sounds like you're smelling something bad. I think, anyway, would you do me a favor and look up what that expression is while I talk?
I think it's ear to the grindstone, but I have no idea why you would put your
Why would
ear
it
in a
be an
grindstone.
ear?
Oh, it's a popular mix-up of two different idioms. Apparently, you put your nose to the grindstone,
There you go.
but
And
you
what do you
keep
put
your ear to the ground.
ear to the ground makes sense.
Yeah, why would I want to put my nose on a grindstone though?
It sounds like I'm just gonna like shred my nose.
It's literally as bad as putting my ear there.
I don't want to put anything on the grindstone. That's like the opposite of what I want. What the fuck was I even saying?
I don't know. By the way, this is our best episode trying to sell a course.
What am I trying to say? Oh, okay. So Laurel and I tend to kind of have an eye on like what's going on. What are people talking about? What are we seeing? And also where we're seeing gaps in education. And so like I'm going to say that tutorial word again, Laurel. I'm sorry. But like when we
Please stop.
started Movement Logic, we started making tutorials, continuing education tutorials for movement professionals.
Yep.
And so we did it because we saw like, oh, there's not a lot of great Con Ed out there. And then we made Live for Longevity because we were like, hang on, women are being scared off of using barbells, and they're one of the greatest tools out there for weightlifting. And we want to make women less intimidated or less nervous. So then we made Live for Longevity. And now I am seeing women in their 70s, 80s who are clients of mine. And there is a stark difference between the ones who still have retained some amount of power and those who don't, because it's not just like we think of Olympic lifts and box jumps, like Laura was talking about, these really difficult power exercises that if you don't have an on ramp to, no, you shouldn't start there. And that's where people get really intimidated and turned off. But what we don't tend to think about is if you're 80 years old, standing up out of your chair is a power exercise. There is a velocity component. If you're not getting that active pushing happening fast enough, you're falling backwards on your butt.
Or using your arms.
Something to propel you. Yeah. You just fall backwards on your butt. I see it all the time. So
it's hard to use your arms on a toilet. Can we talk about that for a second? Unless you get like railings installed, which is often what needs to happen to retrofit a house for an older person. A lot of times you can use your arms to get out of a chair because there are arms on the chair.
Right.
But then when you're on a folding chair or maybe a pew at church.
Rolling chair. You don't want to be pushing on a rolling chair. I've seen somebody do that and I was like, oh, Nelly, please stop doing that because that's not going to end well for anybody. And that's part of the problem is even if you can push, this is what I see, even if you can use your arms to push off the armchair, you're still now stuck with that angle of force behind you, right? The strongest part of your standing up is your arms, right? And now your arms are behind you and you're like, well, fuck, how do I get my weight onto my feet better?
Yeah.
So it becomes like an actual problem for people that I then have to coach them through. And what we're seeing, if we back it up, 30, 40 years, is that because we don't regularly engage in activities of power the way we used to when we were kids, the way you played hopscotch.
I mean, pretty much any sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. When people stop being active, they certainly stop playing sports. And, we lose that power capability. And then you just kind of like skate around it as a problem, right? But then it becomes a problem when 30, 40 years down the line, you're having a hard time getting up off the floor, getting out of a chair, picking up something heavy and hoisting it all the way overhead onto a shelf. These are power movements that show up in day to day. And that's where I think the big disconnect is for most people. They don't connect the fact that a box jump now seems hard or impossible with what that's going to look like down the road if they don't start to on-ramp some more of those movements. Our friend Caitlin Casella, Practice Human on Instagram, I love this so much. She showed a quote unquote box jump of a patient of hers jumping up onto a fat
cookie.
A fat cookie.
45-pound
plate. Thank you. I don't know why the word is.
But let's just call them fat cookies.
Well, I'm just going to finish the sentence. So she had one of her clients jumping up onto a 45-pound plate. That's not a box jump by the purest definition of it, but that was a jump onto probably, 5 or 6 inches. What an awesome place to start. Because if somebody is afraid of doing a movement, then you regress it, right? You make it accessible. Yeah. And that's what we've done in power play.
We don't have any box jumps in power play, though.
No, we don't have any box jumps.
Yeah. What I notice about group classes is that it is just impossible to take an individual in a group class and determine exactly what it is about this particular movement that needs to be scaled and to give them the most appropriate entry point. And what I think we've done with power play is that we've really explained clearly all the different ways that a power exercise can be changed in very simple ways. And we've then explained why you would choose one way over another. And we've outlined in a demo video a progression of this is generally less stress until you progress all the way to the end to this variation, which is generally more stress. And, we're not going for the highest amount of stress for every single individual. We're going for the amount of stress that that person can experience and positively adapt to, and then be prepared for that next stage up. And that kind of granular exercise prescription can't happen in a group class because the person leading the class has sometimes 40 people in front of them, right? And so then the person attending the class is given like one or two other options to work with. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like each individual would be able to make progress a little faster and be exposed to different types of power-based exercises if they were shown a map, a more granular map.
Yeah. While you were talking, it made me think about how it's the same thing that we did with Lift for Longevity, right? You could go to a group class where they're having you work with weights,
Mm-hmm.
but that weight might not be heavy enough for you to
Mm-hmm.
actually, for the number of reps that you're doing, right? There's no individualization, which is what's required to actually make meaningful progress in a category like strength or like power. I think what's probably ending up happening in a lot of these classes where you're doing something that might be considered a power exercise, right? You're moving some external load at speed.
Mm-hmm.
Either the load is not enough so that what you're doing ends up being like just like a high intensity cardio move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for it to actually be power requires some certain like characteristics, which we talk about in the course. So I think a lot of times it's an exercise that could be power were it scaled properly to each person in the class, but there's just no way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, all of these qualities exist on a continuum. Like, so running does involve power, and even slow jogging involves some amount of power. But if we're trying to maximize this adaptation specifically for a particular activity, like, say, standing up from a low toilet seat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the amount of resistance we're working against and the speed at which we're moving start to matter. And so
Right.
just going out for your run, while it is contributing to your ability to move with some amount of speed, right? Like Stu Phillips gave the example of crossing the crosswalk and the time limit that you have, or just walking quickly, which gait speed is a marker of sarcopenia, right? So they'll use
Mm-hmm.
gait speed to diagnose sarcopenia. If gait speed is below a certain speed, it strongly suggests that someone probably has sarcopenia. However, if you are using structured exercise to enhance a particular quality, the good news about power is that it, first of all, doesn't take very much time. And second of all, you want to be prioritizing speed of movement. So once you've hit this ceiling of fatigue in the set, you can go ahead and just stop, because what's going to
Right.
happen after that fatigue sets is your speed of movement is going to slow down. And therefore, you're no longer really optimizing that adaptation anymore. You're starting to drift into, like you said, endurance. So I want to go back to
Yes.
these granular ways that we can alter the exercise stress of a power-based movement, which we teach in Power Play how to do this with every single exercise. And we make it very simple because we give you a progression where these ways of manipulating the exercise are basically represented. But we
Mm-hmm.
also want you to understand what's just happened. Why is it actually less stress, or why is it more stress? So number one is volume. Okay. Doing more of something is more stress. Doing less of something is less stress. So that is kind of a separate category of what we're going to talk about next, which is intensity, right? So how do we alter the intensity of a power-based move? And we give you several different ways to identify this. One is really easy, like just increase or decrease the external load that you're lifting in the exercise. So we do have exercises where we ask you to move a weight through space. It could be a kettlebell, a dumbbell, a medicine ball, right? We give you lots of options, and it probably shouldn't be that heavy, right? We achieve maximum power with loads as light as 30% of your 1RM. That's a lightweight
Mm-hmm.
by pretty much all exercise science definitions. And it can go up to 70%. But, for most activities of life, we're probably going to want to live a little bit closer to that 30%, because standing up from a chair, right, should be a fairly quick movement. We can also involve more or fewer joints. So a lot of the ways that we scale an exercise back is we actually simplify the movement pattern. We take out some aspect of the movement that is complicating it, right? So instead of doing a skater jump, which is going to require you to abduct your thighs and then adduct your thighs and then abduct your thighs and then adduct your thighs, there's going to be an opening and a crisscrossing of your legs. We'll have you just do speedy lateral squats, right? So now we've really simplified and involved fewer joints and joints in a more simple way. You can also increase or decrease intent of effort. This is one of my favorite ways because it can be done to any exercise and it's very simple. It's to just try a little harder and jump a little higher or move a little faster or
Yeah.
slack off a little bit, move a little slower, jump a little lower, right?
Yeah.
And you then can kind of turn the dial
Yeah.
up on how much force you're going to be experiencing because, if you jump faster, you'll jump higher and then you'll land harder, right? But also for something like a speedy sit to stand or a squat jump, right? You can actually just turn the volume down a little bit and give it a 5 out of 10 effort instead of a 10 out of 10 effort. You'll probably be able to control the movement better, to refine your takeoff and landing mechanics a little better, and you're going to experience less total stress so that your body can actually take whatever stress you are experiencing and grow from it. And then eventually you're going to be able to dial up that intent of effort, right?
I think an equivalent idea, because I just love that, like, one of the things you can do is just try harder,
Yeah.
right? It's like you don't need special tools, you don't need extra
Mm-mm.
time, you
Nope.
don't need skill. You just got to put a little more oomph behind it.
That's kind of different from lifting weights in that you have to try harder at the end of the set once fatigue has set in to
Right,
continue to
right.
move the weight, but you can try hard right out of the gate in a power exercise. You could do a 10 out of 10 jump rep number one,
Totally.
right? Or you could do a 5 out of 10 jump rep number one.
Like the way I think about training lifting a lot of the time with my clients is like, let's say I have them do a lift and they can only get through 4 reps of it, maybe 3 reps of it. But this is not a person where I'm trying to, train the heaviest maximal load kind of thing.
Mhm.
So that's when I reduce the load of their lift so that they get more exposure to that load. Same thing
Yeah.
with power. Like if you going your 10 out of 10 means you can do one jump,
Yeah.
that's actually not as valuable
Right.
to your body and to its ability to learn and progress as if you take, maybe don't do 100% maximum effort. Maybe you do 75% effort and you can do 4, something like that. So there is this internal dial that you can turn up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything with exercise, you kind of have to feel what it feels like for yourself to kind of experience it and learn what that's going to feel like in your body when you do it. But that's another really valuable tool that you can learn how to manipulate with
Yes.
power.
Yeah. Okay. So those 3 ways that we just talked about to alter the intensity of a power-based exercise can be done for every single power-based exercise imaginable. You can increase or decrease external load, involve more or fewer joints, increase or decrease intent of effort. And these are often the levers we're going to pull in power play for all of the exercises. But then we have this whole other category of power-based exercises that involve impact. So we have special ways to alter the intensity specific to that category of power-based exercise. One is jump height or drop height. So if you're stepping off of a box, landing and then jumping, which we have that exercise in our course called drop jump, it's one of our highest intensity exercises at the top end. If you jump or step off of a 6-inch box versus a 14-inch box, there's going to be a very big difference in the forces you experience. So this is a very easy modifiable factor to play with. You can also change whether you're landing on one limb or two. And that's a big jump in difference, right? Or a
It
big
really
plummet
is.
in difference, right? You could do pogos on 2 feet or pogos on 1, right? And the 1-footed jump is much higher intensity.
Yeah.
So it makes sense then that you would start with the 2 feet, right? And see how that lands, no pun intended. And then maybe down the road progress to 1, right? You can increase or decrease ground contact time. One example of this is you could do singles or cyclical jumps. A single jump is, let's say I'm doing a vertical jump, right? I'm just standing. I'm going to squat down and jump up into the air and land, take a break, squat down, jump up and land, take a break. Or I decrease ground contact time. I do cyclical. I'm going to jump up into the air, drop down, jump up in the air, drop down, jump up in the air, drop down. A cyclical squat jump is higher intensity. There are higher forces acting on the joints. This is a lesser known but useful way to mitigate stresses in an impact-based exercise. Increase or decrease ground contact time. You can also alter the starting position, right? So if you start a little higher up versus lower down, that's going to change things. But also, if you pause at the bottom of that squat jump and then jump versus drop down and then jump, right? That's going to alter the forces. That's going to alter the jump height. It's going to alter the speed of movement, right? These are subtle, but when you experience them, you notice, right? That actually, oh, when I add that pause, I don't jump as high, but I have more control, perhaps, or I'm more focused on my form at the bottom, right? There's a lot of things that you gain from tweaking these exercises in these subtle ways. And this is not stuff you're going to get in like a CrossFit class or an Orange Theory class. Like the instructor's not going to come up to you and be like, you know what, instead of doing it this way, let's tweak it in this really subtle. No.
Right.
So you're going to sit with this course and you're going to learn this stuff and you're going to be able to direct your own experience, which I love that empowerment side of this as well. You can use
Absolutely.
your arms or not use your arms. You can alter the direction at which you're landing on the floor. You can alter surface stiffness. These are three more ways. But basically, now you've got like 9 different ways to alter the intensity of a power-based exercise. And you're going to then experience all of those different ways
Yeah.
in the exercise progressions, which Sarah is going to walk us through.
Yeah. To Laurel's point about you are empowered to actually do the exercise in a way that fits your body, but you also get to learn what your body's able to do a lot more specifically, not just, oh, well, there's no way I could do cyclical squat jumps, so I'm not even going to try kind of thing, right? So I wanted to give you an example of one of the exercises that we teach. So we teach a vertical jump, or you might know it as like a squat jump kind of thing, but we dial it all the way back. It starts seated. So seated on a box, seated on a bench, seated on a chair. The very first thing you're doing is an explosive sit to stand, which is, again, this goes back to that intent conversation and like you just try harder. So rather than just standing up from a chair the way you would ordinarily in your life, you're going to try to do it as fast as possible, right? You're trying to put some speed behind it. Start trying to teach your body's tissues like, hey, look, you can do this faster. So that's the first one, is this explosive sit to stand. So the next progression, you're still seated on the box or the bench or whatever, but you're going to do your explosive sit to stand all the way up onto your toes. So you're adding a heel raise at the top of it. So now we're introducing a little bit of a balance problem. Then, still seated, you're going to do your explosive sit to stand, but instead of just standing, it goes right into a jump. So essentially what we've done is taken out the challenge of doing it A, without anything under your butt, and B, repeatedly at all. And we're just saying, okay, let's put something under your butt and you're just going to do it once, right? And so maybe you get to that third level, explosive sit to stand that ends with a jump. And you're like, wow, okay, this feels like something I could work on for a while. Awesome. Whenever there's a vertical jump in any of the workouts that we have in the course, that's the version you're going to do, right? So that's the idea. But there is more. So the next level is take the box away and then do all 3 of those versions again. So you might find, oh, actually, you know what? I don't need to be sitting down at the beginning of this. I can handle this without the box. So maybe that's where you start. Then, Laurel was referring to this as well, a paused squat with the jump. So you go down into the bottom of your squat, you hang out, and then you're going to do one jump and then just land. And then we take the pause away for the next version. So you come down into your squat, you immediately propel back up and you just do one jump. And then finally, the full expression of the pose, which is an old phrase from yoga, is that cyclical squat jump where you're just going over and over again and you're not stopping. So hopefully this description of the progression is helpful for people to understand, like, okay, something that looks a little too challenging for me in that final version, there's like 9 places along the way where I could stop and work that logically will lead me to the next step and to eventually being able to do the cyclical squat jumps. It's like weight training. Like you don't start somebody with the heaviest barbell or the heaviest load and say, go do some deadlifts. You teach them the form, right? With a lower load. You get them used to what it feels like. You work on breathe. Like there's all these things that you work on before you then get to the sort of like heavier versions. And so conceptually, it's the same thing. It's just we're asking you to do a little bit of that strength work at a much faster speed.
Yeah. I find that some of the biggest complaints I hear when we put our nose to the grindstone and our ear to the ground and our nose downwind of what's happening
and our eyeball on the concrete, it's just all these things that sound horrible.
Yeah. Is it's usually, from my perspective, something along the lines of my knees can't handle that anymore. Or if it's between women, usually, right?
Hmm.
I can't handle that anymore because I leak
Right.
my pelvic floor slash bladder slash whatever it is. I've had too many kids, right?
Hmm.
Or it's just, you know what? I'm too old for that.
Hmm.
Right. One of those.
Yeah.
And I think what it comes from is that people go through a period of not doing this type of exercise. And this period could be years, right?
Hmm.
Decades. And then they get it in their mind that they're going to try something, right? Whether it is CrossFit or Orange Theory or some group fitness class.
Or even
And
like, oh, I'm going to go play basketball with some friends.
oh, yeah,
You
or
know,
running.
yeah, I'm going to
Yeah.
return to something that I haven't done in maybe decades
Right. Or
and
jump
expect it to be
roping.
the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, fuck, like I can't do that anymore. And
Right.
they, I think, misattribute the experience they had to the activity rather than the dose of the
Right.
activity and
Right.
their preparation for that dose. And so, when we have knee issues after we do a bunch of power-based movement or we leaked or we just feel like we got run over by a truck. I wish that people had enough background to go, I probably can do that type of stuff, but I went to a 45-minute class and did 100 repetitions of these different types of exercises. And maybe after not doing it at all for decades and then doing 100, whatever it was, jump ropes or box
Right.
jumps or
Yeah.
wall balls or whatever it was, like maybe that was just too much. And all of those actual movements and moving quickly, like, is completely within my
Right.
ability and my pelvic floor's ability to handle it and my knee's ability to handle it if I were to introduce it in a much smaller dose. And so
Yeah.
that is also why we created Power Play, because what we give you with Power Play is we give you the smallest possible dose. We're like, here's where you should start if you have any doubts.
Mhm.
And then here's how you very gradually progress when you are ready.
Totally. It makes me think a lot about how, for exercise specifically, we all have this kind of all or nothing thinking about it.
Yes. Oh my
Either I can
gosh.
box jump or I can't. There's no like, I could relearn or learn, right? There's no like, I could
Yeah.
improve. I'm going to start here. I could end up there.
Yeah.
It's all or nothing.
People see the end
Right.
and they think that's the beginning. So
Right.
they see the box jump and they think, I have to be able to do that to participate in this kind of activity or class or whatever. It's like, no, that's the freaking end, dude.
Yeah.
Like, back that wagon up. Let's
Hmm.
start at the very, very beginning, right? And that's what we do with Power Play. We give you the beginning and we give you the end, and then we
Yeah.
show you how to go from the beginning to the end.
I mean, if CrossFit was smart, they'd do that. There's
I,
so many people that are turned off of it by billions of videos of people doing incredibly hard
Yeah,
things.
I know there are exceptional coaches working in CrossFit boxes, but I think a lot of CrossFit coaching is very like monkey see, monkey do. I just kind of stick to the script, and
Right.
there isn't this granular, nuanced tweaking of exercises.
Here's the thing as well. If you are one of those people who's listening to this and you're thinking, okay, yeah, but my knees, or okay, yeah, but my pelvic floor, if you start to engage in these types of exercises at a dose and a level that is actually appropriate, that your body can handle currently, that you can then progress, guess what? Your
Yeah.
knees and your pelvic floor and your anything else is actually going to get better.
Hell yeah.
It's not going to hurt you so much. You're
Yeah.
not going to find yourself leaking,
Yeah.
right? It is this thing. I mean, to your point about people see the end and think it's the beginning, there's just so much basic care that you could do for your body that would
Yeah.
take care of these smaller problems now so that they don't become bigger problems later. And especially the pelvic floor one. I mean, a perfect
Mhm.
example of that is people who have never dealt with any sort of incontinence issue that they are having, and they just kind of like muddle their way through it. They wear pads, whatever. And then they get older and then they're discovering, oh, you know what? This incontinence has gotten worse. And I am actually not getting to the bathroom on time, and I am soiling my underwear because I lack the power to stand up with speed and get to the bathroom fast
Yeah.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
it's such an Ouroboros, right?
So, Sarah,
So
are you saying that it's possible that your issues managing pressure and timing with jumping are not going to improve unless you actually start jumping a little bit?
well, in fact, I am. To be fair, and as a PT, I would be remiss if I didn't say this. There are plenty of urinary continence issues that
Yeah.
should not start with jumping, even
Right.
gentle jumping. You might have much bigger problems that you need to be seen by
Yeah.
a gynecologist, a pelvic floor physical therapist, something like that. But we're talking about there's a lot of people walking around who just occasionally leak a little. And honestly, like that's not that big of a deal. And I certainly don't want people like suddenly freaking. Like I just sneezed this morning and like a little bit of pee came out. And I was like, oh, that's annoying. I'm not like stopping my day and having a panic attack about it.
Right.
But power training, a lot of it is legitimately free. Like it doesn't require a lot of external equipment. When we have this
Yeah.
ability to work on something like this and we don't,
Hmm.
it's a shame.
It's a shame. And I want to also say, like, yes, pelvic floor issues involving incontinence probably shouldn't all start with jumping, like 100%. But here's the thing about every single jumping progression in power play. Not that we're saying power play is pelvic floor therapy, it's definitely not. But guess how every single jumping progression begins in power play? With a non-jump.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we also don't start you jumping because listen, that doesn't make any sense. If you need to back up, the backing up is going to take you all the way to the beginning. And a jump at the beginning starts with not jumping, but rather just moving through the movement pattern explosively
Yeah.
and then working on that. Because that in and of itself is going to be a challenge to something like the pelvic floor, something like the knees, right? Just being able to manage quick movement through your
Mm-hmm.
body. You don't need to be adding impact right away. Like,
Absolutely.
why?
Absolutely.
Start with the movement. Then, once you've got the speed of the movement down and it's gotten a little speedier and it's gotten a little crisper and it's gotten a little, zippier,
Yeah.
come up off the floor a little bit. Woo!
Zip, zip.
And then do that a little bit. Don't do 100 reps. Right?
100.
100. Do 100, not
100.
100.
Yes. Not 100. Do 100. Maybe do five.
Do 5.
Yeah.
Then wake up the next day and see how you feel.
Yeah.
Right?
And then maybe try five more. Let's talk a little bit about some of the science behind this.
Yeah. Well, the Cliff's notes are that you lose power faster than strength and you lose strength like 5 to 6 times faster than muscle mass. The reason being that these adaptations of strength and power rely heavily on adaptations that take place within the nervous system, right? So you've probably heard of type 2 muscle fibers, right? So type 2 muscle fibers are innervated by a high threshold, fast twitch, right? Motor neurons. And these are connected to your brain. And so when you need to move with a lot of force, which can involve both moving against a lot of resistance, that's heavy strength training, or moving into those last few tough reps of a set of moderate or light loads with strength training. So strength training, right, generally, or if you need to move very fast. So it's the resistance getting tough or the speed of movement getting high. Your brain sends a signal through these high threshold motor neurons that connect to these type 2 muscle fibers that make up in some of your muscles the majority of the muscle mass. The majority of the fibers of that muscle are actually type 2, and it's genetically determined and everybody's different. But just know that a lot of the muscle on your body is these high threshold motor units. And if you're never actually moving against resistance in a high intensity context, or you're never moving fast, these fibers don't get recruited, they don't get used, and guess what? They freaking go away.
Yeah.
Your body's like, guess we don't do that anymore, don't need this, because your body is brutally efficient and biologically, it only keeps around the stuff that you actually need to survive. And so if you're never sending it the message that we need this, that circuitry goes away. But what happens is that your body's like, well, let's not get rid of this fiber. Let's make it a type 1 because we're using type 1 fibers for the activities of our life, which include walking, standing around, sitting around, doing like low-level housework, maybe occasionally doing some yoga, some Pilates, right? Not high-intensity, fast stuff. So we're just going to take these and we're going to make them a type 1. And then what happens is that your ceiling, it drops, right? So your
Yeah.
potential starts to drop because the type 2s never come back, right? The type 1 muscle fibers, which are more about low effort, endurance, postural type processes, which you're using all the time, right? Like sitting here, we're using our type 1 muscle fibers just to not collapse into a puddle on the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those don't really need to be maintained because living your life maintains them, right?
Right.
You must use these type 2 fibers for high force, fast movements, right? So we want to be able to continue to do that. And so the way we continue to do that is by doing that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's listening to this and thinking, well, shit, have I lost too many of my type 2 fibers? The good news is it's always a good time to start training them, using the ones that you have and
Yes.
dusting them off, waking them up, bringing
We
them back online,
we still need you.
right? And reminding them that they're still necessary so that they stick around,
Yeah.
right?
And it doesn't actually matter what you've lost or how many. You'll never know. No one will ever know.
Right.
So why worry about it? Just do the stuff that's going to keep them around.
Right. So I have a client that I work with who is in an assisted living facility. She is 81 or 82. My mother turns 80 this year. And these two women, who are roughly the same age, could not be more different in their physical capability. The woman that I work with in the assisted living facility has basically ebbs and flows of her capability.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, it's a safety issue, but she basically does not do much exercise if I am not there. And I am there 1 hour a week.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she's had a decent week and we can walk down the hall and back. And even
Mm.
though she's feeling okay, wobbly on her legs, she makes it. Other days, we have to do all of her exercise in bed. And it's got to be tough to be her because everything is convincing her that inertia is the best place to be. Everything in her body. She has some neurodegeneration, so a lot of stuff in her brain.
Mm-hmm.
But she does know that she needs to be doing more, but she does not possess the internal motivation of whatever type, whatever might be necessary for her to do it. I contrast that with my mom. I really think the fact that she has played tennis her whole life is the biggest difference because she's getting some aerobic-ish activity, but she's getting power training. She's getting impact. She's having to deal with all of these different forces. I also did start her lifting weights, but she doesn't enjoy it very much. So I don't pressure her on that. Although I'm now training a friend of hers. And so I'm trying to use this subtle pressure where I'm like, oh, well, Nancy can now deadlift the same amount as you. And she's only been doing this for like 3-4 months.
Yeah, because I'm sure your mom's competitive if she plays tennis.
In a sort of sporting way. Yes, she's competitive. I don't know. She may still not care enough about the weightlifting. Okay. but the contrast between these two women is so stark. There's another woman that I've started seeing more recently on Instagram. I believe her name is Christine or Chris Hudson, who we're going to try to get on the podcast. She's 72 and she's out there. She's basically producing the kind of content that we're trying to produce, but she's living proof of it. She's 72. Like, yeah. Right. So that's always the front of mind for me. Like, I'm not 72. I have no idea what it feels like to be 70 or 75 or 80, but I just have in my, vision all of the time, clients who look like my mom and are having the kind of life my mom is having where she's active and she's out. There's no disruption to the things that she wants to do because of her physical capability.
Tell me again, how old is your mom?
She's turning 80 this year.
Wow.
She does everything she wants.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's like, oh, I can't do that. It'll be too hard. Versus my client who basically can't do much at all. Most of life is not available to her
And
anymore.
how old is your client?
My client is 82, I believe.
Okay.
So basically the same age.
Yep.
But a very different historical run up to that age. And as a result, a very different life at that age.
Yep. I have clients who are predominantly interested in the health and longevity side of personal training. And then I have clients who are athletes. I've got climbers, disc golfer, I've got cyclists, and then runners, right? Like 50% of them are recreational athletes, 50% of them are not. And something that comes into the programs of almost everybody eventually is some kind of power-based movement. And the prescription has nothing to do with whether or not they're a recreational athlete or a non-athlete. It has everything to do with their personal preferences, their goals, and their training history, right? And so the reason I share that is that I think that people see power-based movement and they think that's for athletes, and therefore that's not me. I don't identify as that. But fact of the matter is exercise, and you get out what you put in. And so even though you don't identify as an athlete, you can still develop qualities of an athlete by engaging in the specific types of exercises.
Right.
And those exercises are really just general inputs. They're general inputs that can enhance so many different activities. So if you don't think of yourself as an athlete per se, like you don't play tennis or you don't run or whatever, so much of the daily life activities that you engage in are mirrors of athletic movements. They might be happening in a slightly less explosive way, or they might be happening in a smaller range of motion, or they might be happening in a not as obvious kind of mirror of the athletic movement, but they're athletic movements. And the more that you go through your day, I think, and ask yourself, what would it be like to actually have to do this slowly? You start to realize how much of your movements are actually done with some speed, some zip behind them.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to preserve with
Right.
power. We're
Right.
trying to preserve that spunk, that speed, that zip, that bounce, that momentum that you're able to generate. So just a little experiment for the audience, right? For the next rest of the day, think back to this challenge or this prompt, right? Which is notice how you're moving, not just the bigness of the movement, not just the amount of stuff you're schlepping around or carrying, but notice the speed at which you're moving.
Yeah.
And notice those moments in your day where you actually have to pick up the pace a little bit more, or heft or heave or hop. We need to be able to do that because you're going to quickly realize you do it all the time.
Right. And that's power. That's power. And one other thing about it that we haven't even brought up yet, I can't believe, is how much power is involved in balancing or recovering from a loss of balance, right? So that it doesn't become a fall.
It's reactive.
Yeah. The patients that I work with who have neurologic conditions like Parkinson's disease or multiple sclerosis, that's the way that we train power. Because for them, they have a condition that is getting in the way of their body's ability to do certain movements. And so, especially for my Parkinson's patient, one of the things that Parkinson's does to your body is it slows you down. Mm-hmm. So we spend a lot of time doing the real zippy, quick heel raises and real quick knee into the chest kind of movements, because that's the kind of thing she needs to be able to do if she catches her toe on a rug and trips, right? She still needs to be able to move fast. So there's all kinds of reasons why you can and should train power, no matter your age, no matter your sense of yourself as an athlete or not. It's always a good idea.
Sarah, do people have to spend a half an hour during the workout working on power?
They sure don't. And in fact, they shouldn't. Your ability to generate it goes down very quickly. And so then it just turns into like an endurance exercise. So you actually want to capture it while it's still a power exercise. And that might mean 3 repetitions of something instead of 10 repetitions of something.
Right. To keep that movement sparky and zippy and not grindy and slow.
And we talk you through how to do that in the course. Yeah.
We also give you 9 or 10 different workouts that are between 3 and 4 minutes. The majority, I think one of them is 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
A lot of these workouts, you're actually resting for parts of the workout, getting ready to then perform the same high quality set of an exercise again. And it's very visually oriented. Basically, Sarah is showing the more scaled back version that we've selected. And I'm usually showing the more scaled forward version that we've selected. But then within the workout description, there's a link to the exercise progression in which you can select a different variation to do. And you know where it falls on the continuum of lower to higher exercise stress. So if Sarah's version is still a little too much, well, open up that exercise and go back a few steps and start there instead. And then we just have a timer on the screen and we show you for how long to do the exercise, and then you rest. And then you might do a different exercise and then rest, and then you might start over and do it all again. And it's very modular in the sense that this 3-minute chunk can slot into anything you do, right? You could do your power before you go on your walk. You could do it before your yoga practice. You could do it before your Pilates. You do it before your strength training. We do recommend that you do it first because, again, it's sneakily energy demanding. And because we're trying to use type 2 fibers, right? Those type 2 fibers are hungry fibers, man. They require a lot of energy. And so we want to be energy rich and fresh to create these high quality, speedy movements. But 3 minutes, right, is so not a lot of time. And we also start you with 1 workout a week.
Right.
Y'all, do you have time for 3 minutes once a week to work on power?
You do.
You do.
You do, as it turns out.
And then from there, guess what you can build? You can start the whole workout over and do 6 minutes instead of 3 minutes, or you can do 2 days a week instead of 1, right? And from there, we gradually, sensibly build your tolerance for this form of exercise from the beginning. We don't start with the end. We start the very, very beginning.
That's right. So right now, the course, we are selling it at an introductory price because it is brand new. It is $99. That price is going to go up after May 31st. So link is in the show notes. If you're on Instagram, it's in our bio or it's on our website. Go get it, y'all.
Go get it, y'all.
We hope you enjoyed learning about the course, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.